Yeah, torture, motherfucker. What? Torture? What? What? I'll fucking tie you to a fucking bedpost, your ass cheeks spread out and shit, right? Put a hanger on the fucking stove and let that shit sit there for like half hour. Take it off and stick it on your ass slowly, like, yeah, I'll fucking lay your nuts on the fucking dresser. Just your nuts. Lay it on the fucking dresser and bang that shit with a spiked fucking bat. Blow. Oh, what's up? I'll fucking put your tongue on the fucking mouth and stab the shit with a rusty screwdriver. Blow. I'll fuck you, hang you by your fucking dick off the fucking 12-story building out this motherfucker. I'll fucking sew your ass closed and keep feeding you and feeding you and feeding you and feeding you. Yo, roll the dice. Yo, roll the dice. Yo, so it's going down like that, huh? Yeah, we're wilding. Check it out, kid. From the slums of Shaolin, It's Always Sunny in Hollywood strikes again. The drum arts, the patty, and of course, the Lugia.
Dude, I tried so hard to contain my laughter throughout that whole monologue. I was not expecting that.
I know. That's why I did it. Dude, that song is like halfway through the album too. It's so fucking insane. It's like after like a song ends, it just immediately cuts to this giant rant. I'm like, what the fuck?
I assume no other songs on the album were like that one?
Well, it doesn't open like that, but like generally it sounds. But no, the theming of Wu-Tang is very martial arts because they grew up on a lot of martial arts movies. I would actually say that Wu-Tang was probably like one of the guys who really popularized martial arts movies and wuxia films in the West, which is why I decided to open it to them because I know this is probably how my dad got introduced to it, and he's the one that introduced me to these movies, and I know I checked out other stuff because of them. So yeah.
Okay, then let me rephrase the question. Are the other songs on the album not as blatant as that one?
No, they're not. They're not like that. No.
Okay.
Today we're gonna be talking about China. A lot of kind of the history of their martial arts movies and get into probably the biggest Chinese language film in the world, honestly. Like just in terms of how it actually like was an international hit, not just popular there and like a mainstream international hit. As in, it got nominated for like 10 Oscars and it won 4 of them. Have any of you guys seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon before in the past?
I knew it by name.
No.
I've never seen it, nor did I know anything about it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was a movie I definitely watched as a kid. But I haven't watched it since I was a kid. In fact, I watched it a couple times as a kid because we had it on DVD, and I loved martial arts stuff. But for some reason, I couldn't remember anything of it. So watching this movie was very surreal because I had a bunch of like scenes definitely like flash into my memory again, especially that fight at the bar towards the end of the movie. That was like my favorite fucking scene as a kid. I distinctly remember watching that over and over and over again. So it was like cool having those memories flash. I'm going ahead of myself. So Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a epic romantic drama wuxia martial arts film. It's basically this grand Chinese epic where we follow these, legendary warriors and this princess who's like, torn between the dark and the light, wants her freedom stuff. I'd say it's very classic, kind of like Disney princess, but it's also kind of like an epic. The main character is almost kind of like a spin on like a classic Disney princess archetype in a way. But the actual story and like lore of the world, it feels almost like the Star Wars prequels, except clearly much more well received. Even has like a kind of romantic thing like the Star Wars prequels. But yeah, so Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is an adaptation of a book series. Is actually the adaptation of the 4th book in the series, and the other ones were not adapted. So I have a question for you guys: when you watched the movie, could you tell that it was part of a longer series?
In a
Not
sense.
really.
I felt that it was like it completely worked as its own thing, but once I learned it was the 4th entry of a series, I was like, that makes so much sense because all the characters, like they just drop you into this world. They don't explain anything, but you can pick it up just through the exposition, the dialogue, and all that stuff. But like with all those details, exposition, I can immediately tell. I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. All these stories we're hearing, as legends and stuff, or like backstory. That was probably like what those other stories were actually about, and it was like, oh, that's kind of cool in a way.
Were there any stories revolving the main characters, Shulin and Mubai? Because they have established history within the context of this movie.
Yeah, from what I understand, the older stories are like they directly correlate with this. So
Okay.
it's kind of interesting just to see a story where, like, to people who read the books, that's just the plot of the original, like, the books they've already read. Any lore, anything you learned about this, order or whatever, all that stuff. That's just cool little tidbits here. It's established here, and that actually makes me want to bring another point, because earlier I mentioned how this is kind of like Star Wars. This is also kind of like Star Wars, because George Lucas, he had the ideas for the prequels in the back of his head. He was like, I want Star Wars to feel like the fourth entry in the series. So he named it, Star Wars Episode 4.
This is based on the fourth book in a series, so
So it's kind of funny. There's almost I'm going to say, probably one of the best Star Wars movies that's not technically Star Wars. It's got it feels like it draws from like a lot of similar inspirations and whatnot. I mean, it's even, very Eastern, which Star Wars is. So, kind of cool. But anyway, this was a multinational venture. This movie was made on a 17 million budget, and due to it being an international hit, it grossed $200 million worldwide. 120 million of those being in the United States, which is crazy to me, because especially in 2000, 112 million dollars, that's an actual hit. That is crazy. It is the first non-English language film to make over $100 million in the United States. Universally acclaimed by critics, won over 40 awards, nominated for 10 Academy Awards. I think this is what really broke Ang Lee over into the West, which is why they hired him for, Hulk, and, we got Brokeback Mountain and Life of Pi and all these other great movies. Anyway, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a translation of a Chinese idiom. It's a literal translation. So the idiom means it basically describes a place or situation that is full of unnoticed masters. It's from a poem of the ancient Chinese poems, Yuzhen, that reads, well, I cannot read that. That is not in English, but it means behind the rock in the dark probably hides a tiger, and the coiling giant root resembles a crouching dragon. So kind of like, you don't see the actual threat, which is the tiger, but you perceive, this dragon as a threat, I guess, which, even though that's just a root,
I
it's
don't
about
exactly
unnoticed
know the
masters.
source, but in Chinese mythology, there's always depictions of tigers versus dragons. I don't know like what it's supposed to mean though, but I've seen that type of imagery in other media.
Yeah. Obviously, Mulan came out 2 years earlier, which is about a Chinese female warrior. And if you notice in this movie, literally like every character except Chow Yun-fat is a woman. Every like major character. So it's kind of interesting. And yeah, the story is set during the Qin dynasty.
Qin.
It doesn't tell us the specific time. This dynasty is from 1644 to 1912. So very long period of time, and I guess technically the last real kind of Chinese dynasty before modernization. Who knows when it takes place? That's that's literally like 300 years, but whatever. Also, since I mentioned Mulan, I guess I should also mention, so Mulan came out in 98, which probably set the stage for so Chinese pop culture come in. And then the year after, The Matrix came out, which deliberately drew from Wuxia, having people on wires doing all these crazy jumps and flying and kicks and all that stuff. So probably also set the stage, and I guess that 1-2 punch, an actual Chinese movie was able to make it in the West. So funny thing is the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film was presented to Taiwan, but it's a co-production between a company in 4 regions. So the Chinese company, China Film Co-Production Corporation, the American company, Columbia Pictures, and Sony Pictures Classics and Good Machine, and the Hong Kong company, Edco Films, and the Taiwanese Zoom Hunt Productions, as well as unspecified United China Vision and Asian Union Film and Entertainment. So basically, a bunch of East Asia and a couple American companies got involved. The film was made in Beijing and was shot in the Urumqi Western Provinces, Taklamakan Plateau, Shanghai, and Anji of China. They also shot in the Gobi Desert, where it was constantly raining. Director Ang Lee said he didn't take a break in 8 months, not even for half a day, and he was so miserable and didn't have any energy to be happy. He almost died for this, so appreciate it, I guess. Also, apparently, every single actor had a different accent. So Chow Yun-fat is from Hong Kong and speaks Cantonese. Michelle Yeoh is from Malaysia and grew up speaking English and Malay, so she learned this standard Chinese lines phonetically. Shang Zheng, who's the bandit, he's from Taiwan and he speaks Chinese and a Taiwanese accent. And Jia, who's the female lead, the main character, she spoke native Mandarin. She spoke with a native Mandarin accent that Ang Lee wanted, so she was the only one that I guess didn't need to learn the accent. That's kind of interesting. It's very spaghetti western, I guess, in a way, where everyone technically spoke a different language. Anyway, plot summary. So, in the Qing Dynasty, China, we follow Li Mubai, a renowned Wudang swordsman, and his friend Yu Shu Lian, a warrior, and they had a private security company. They've long had feelings for each other, but they couldn't because of a backstory we learned where she was engaged to his friend, and they felt, oh, we can't date because your ex was my best friend. So they love each other but can't be together. And it's sort of parallel story. We kind of follow the main character who she wants to be like Shulin, wants to be this warrior princess, and she also kind of has this like forbidden love story going on. And unlike the older characters who just kind of like accept their duty and roles in the world, she actively fights against it. She fights against being princess, fights against all this stuff. And ultimately the ending is kind of a bit bittersweet. But yeah, those are the broad strokes. And we have this main villain called the Jade Fox, who's almost kind of like a classic, almost kind of like witch kind of seductress character, almost like a Faustian element where it's like, oh, I'll give you this power that you want. But she's also kind of like, the villain, although it's a bit more complicated than that. So who wants to start?
I'll start. So, I thought this movie, it was actually very different than I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be in the vein of something like, I don't know, Karate Kid or Kung Fu Panda, where it's about the training of a prodigy. Because the beginning of the movie highlights the green sword and how, like, only certain people can yield it. But to my surprise, it's actually the antithesis of that type of story. Because Lee wants to train Jen to become a great fighter with the sword, but she's like, no, I don't trust you. I don't want to do this. I want to do my own thing. The movie did throw me for a loop, though, when in the middle of it, it suddenly explains her past with the bandit. I don't remember his name. Yeah, him. I was very thrown for a loop because I'm like, okay, this is a backstory, right? But it went on for like 15 minutes, and I was like, wait, did I miss a certain plot point? Is just what the story is now, but then they transition back, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, it does all connect in the end, but again, I was just kind of thrown for a loop for how long it was going.
Yeah, there is a very good reason why they show you that backstory that ties into the ending, but I do agree with you. It did felt like it went on a little too long. I don't mind it though. I know I kind of give movies like shit when it like establishes backstories like in the middle and it focuses on them for too long. I didn't feel that way as much here though. I think it was paced relatively well in this film.
I didn't mind it. It just kind of came out of nowhere. But overall, I did like this one. I liked the sets, I liked the score, I liked the fight scenes, and their blatant disregard of physics and gravity.
People can just fucking fly in this universe. Deal with it.
I don't know. Looks cool as hell. I'm cool with it. Yeah,
that's the thing I kind of respect. I remember George Lucas. He once talked about how he really liked the Hidden Fortress because he knew nothing about Japan and he felt that he just got thrown into this world he didn't understand, and he wanted to do that with Star Wars. I kind of feel there's something here too. They just kind of all Wuxias kind of have this kind of like flying dreamlike logic, this sort of Dragon Ball logic to it. It's kind of cool to just be sort of thrown into this, and they don't like explain everything. You're just like expected to accept it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun.
I do imagine get over the floatiness of the characters. It felt like they had no weight, but again, you said this was like part of an established timeline, an established story, if you will. So they probably learned all this stuff along the way, and then we get to hear where they're kind of masters of the art of anti-gravity.
Again, it looks cool. I was entertained. I'm fine with it.
That's just how that's just how the Wuxia genre works. Where you're just flying around. It's kind of like, I don't know, shonen anime or like superhero stuff, or like the people are just flying around. You don't really think about it because it's just such a ingrained part of the genre. It also makes me wonder if like that's why the characters in Dragon Ball just kind of fly around, because it's an established part of the Wuxia stuff, and Dragon Ball is all Chinese inspired. I think last time I mentioned it and Gladiator as being like kind of like to me like the two movies that kind of established the 2000s blockbuster kind of style, I guess, along with the Matrix and yeah, I think I'd stand by that because when I watched this movie, I could see like echoes of like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies in there and a bunch of other stuff where I'm like, oh yeah, they definitely like took some notes from here. I wonder if like any of the On Wire stuff was like, Sam Raimi like called and was like, hey, how'd you do that stuff? Not that Spider-Man has a bit more weight to it, but yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. maybe it's because it's the fourth entry in like a series, but I feel like it cut out a lot of the stuff that I feel like most stories like this would tell. But it's also kind of the stuff that like you see all the time, so I'm kind of glad it kind of cut it. Where like here it just kind of like focus on all like the most like intense moments. It almost feels like kind of like you know how like action scenes in most movies are kind of like facilitate like they're there to sort of facilitate the story, and
Yeah.
really that's it. This reminds me of how like songs and musicals are, where I feel like a lot of the action scenes are more of like an emotional climax of sorts in a way, where like you know when words aren't enough, you know you dance, you sing. Here, if words aren't enough, you start you know throwing fists. That's how it kind of felt as the movie went along, and I like that kind of element. I thought that was cool. Love story was surprisingly much more of a focus than I thought it would be because I didn't remember that as much, but still say it, you know, it worked. Especially like I'd say the older characters are my favorites. I don't know about you guys, but
I
I
would
definitely like
agree.
the older characters.
Although
But at the same time,
I think Jen and Lo's relationship ends with a nice crescendo though. I really like the way that
yeah,
one ended.
I like the main girl a lot. I would say like her love interest is probably like the weak link of the four main characters. Where like he's cool, but I feel like there isn't like that much to him emotionally. Where it feels like the story is more about the older characters and their relationship with this you know girl. And I thought the villain was also kind of interesting. Especially thought it was like really cool, like a cool twist you wouldn't expect. Is like usually you expect this to be like a Orochimaru type figure, you know, Vader or something, you know, seduced to the dark side or whatever. But here, there's like they just straight up established that like the main character is more powerful than her, than the Jade Fox. And I was like, huh, that's kind of funny. And like the way and the reason she's more powerful than her is just because like she is like an educated noblewoman, so she can just read better. They flip a lot of the details. You know, the relationship with Jade Fox is like it's a lot more different than you'd expect from like a movie like this. I was very surprised by how like active of a main character you know we had, and it was like it's actually kind of cool. Like, you know, you mentioned that backstory thing, but that backstory to me almost felt like a transition point. In the first act, you kind of think the main characters are going to be the older characters, and the backstory is like, no, this is the real main character of the story. And then from there on, you know, that becomes clear. And it's
Oh, absolutely.
like the first act was almost like a prologue, or it's almost like we got the prologue after the first act instead of before it, which is doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting structural choice, I guess, almost like misdirect you. Although I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if you guys could tell. I don't know if like we were supposed to be able to tell, but like that first fight scene, I immediately knew it was her just because
Yeah,
like I could just
I
recognize
noticed
it.
her
Yeah,
too.
Like it was
yeah.
her eyes. I just immediately recognized those eyes. I was like,
And then you look
But
at
the
the
movie,
wanted poster, like the scene, like after that scene, and it shows like an old Lee. I'm like, that's not who I saw. That's not her at all. What are you
well, the
talking
movie
about?
doesn't hold. The movie doesn't
I was
hold on
confused.
on the secret of the identity too long, so it's not like some major
Yeah,
Oh
twist
it's
where
yeah,
it
yeah.
does
It's
happen.
not.
yeah.
It's pretty quick. And the fact they drop like hints heavily, and I was like,
In
I feel
fact,
like they wanted you to immediately
the
know.
older characters like actively knew the whole time. It's like, yeah, we knew that Jen was the disciple of the Jade Fox.
Yeah. So again, it's all these things where like you almost expect it to be like, oh, is this gonna be like one of those like liar views, like the slow unraveling of something obvious? It's like no. I was like, oh, okay. It's a movie where like it feels so conventional, but it just it flips just enough stuff and it cuts out all the fat where you're just like, oh, like it's like a
Again, I was
refreshingly kind of like brisk film almost.
again I was expecting
Like
a Prodigy film, but it skips over that. They're like, fuck that, no.
I don't know. I kind of like it. Just felt like I got like all the meat. It's like almost I got like instead of like I don't want to say it's like a highlight reel of like a TV show almost, but like it kind of does feel like you're just getting like if someone like saw like a took like a 5 season TV show and was like this arc is the best part, so they just took that part.
And cut all the
And I was
fat.
like, yeah, and I was like, it surprisingly works. It works a lot more than you think it was. I remember one of my friends was like, it feels like I saw what the Star Wars prequels was trying to do, except instead of it being what 3 movies, it's one. And I was like, I'd agree almost.
So we've been talking a lot
Part-
about the characters and like the love angle of the story. Can we talk about the action scenes though? Because holy
Oh,
shit, they're
absolutely.
so good. The
Yeah,
fight where they're on the
yeah.
treetops and
I
they're
just
like
want to like say something very clear to the audience. We mentioned that it's very like weightless. That is not an insult to this
that's
at
a
all.
compliment. Like if
Yeah,
you look at the
what I'm
fight where Mubai and Jen are fighting like on the bamboo sticks at the top, and like Jen is like trying so hard to balance herself, whereas Mubai is like nonchalant. He can keep his balance steady. Like he
Right
has
as
the
a
upper
feather.
hand against her. That was cool. But I love the fight where Shulin and Jen fight each other. and Shu just has to like make do with the weapons around her because Jen has the green destiny sword which cuts through anything. So like once a weapon's gone, she has to scurry to get another one. And then she picks up like a mace that she can't even lift and it's heavy, so she's like, fuck this, I'm going to something else.
Kind of reminds
Yeah.
me of a fight in like Breath of the Wild or like some open world game where you have a whole inventory.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost kind of funny because, like, yeah, when we describe the plot, we're just describing like a romantic epic, like Pride and Prejudice or something. But like, yeah, if you're wondering why like this was, you know, a classic kind of college dorm movie for a bunch of guys in the 2000s, yeah, it's because it has some of the best action ever put to film. I like how like all the choreography is like these like long unbroken takes and with coverage where you can see the whole thing because like I feel like a lot of action movies don't really do that and
Yeah,
I
they
thought it was
tend to
really
get
cool and
close
got
up
like
with
some
quick cuts.
yeah instead of close up with quick cuts like you just see the full choreography and it's almost like you know we talked about Singing in the Rain like a few weeks back. It kind of reminded me of that where you just see this unbroken take of all this like beautiful choreography and again with kind of the emotional thing I mentioned and like all the wires it almost does you know people say that like scenes are kind of like dancing. It actually kind of feels like dancing but like in a good way. So this is debatably the ultimate date movie because it's got something for everyone. You know, epic romance, dancing, fights. I'm not surprised that this movie, like part of me is surprised this movie did so well in America, but I'm also not surprised because there is literally something for everyone. It's very brisk. It's just and I guess people in America are much more willing to just drop into something they don't understand more than you'd think. Good job, us. We're not as ignorant as the world makes us think we are.
I did notice how in the first fight scene, the music kind of synced up with the hits, which
Yeah. Sorry,
I
that's what I
wish
want to say.
I wish more fight scenes did that, honestly. Like not just in
Yeah,
this
it
movie,
felt
but like in
very
general.
but yeah, the action scene syncing itself to the music. It feels very classic Hollywood in a way. I know like if you watch a lot of those early like silent movies and stuff, everything would sync to Charlie Chaplin, all that stuff. And this feels like kind of a mood to sort of almost like reintroduce that to Hollywood again. Earlier I mentioned I feel like this movie was super influential to Pirates of the Caribbean. That was one of the things I think was influential because if you ever like rewatch those movies again, like pay attention to the score. They actually do kind of sync a lot of like the music to the actions and the fights. At least in the first one. I don't remember if the other ones did it, but the first Pirates of the Caribbean they did like sync the music to the action. Kind of funny how it's like such a simple story on paper because I feel like looking at the plot summary, there's so much going on and there's like so much lore and all this stuff, but like all you basically understand is like there's like a secret. I kind of thought it was kind of interesting how the two like older leads were kind of like in a secrets, not a secret society, but they're like in a they're basically Jedi. Like I don't know how else to say it, but like they're basically Jedi, like in a secret order. Sorry, I'm using Star Wars so much as like a point of contact, but yeah,
If it
this feels like
works, it works. So.
if Star Wars was a romantic epic instead of like a hero's journey thing, if it was more like Princess Bride, I guess. I don't know. It'd be like this. Hopefully one day this movie will get I guess more adaptations. It did technically get a sequel called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, but from what I understand, that is not. I'm not sure if it's adapted from the actual Crane Iron series. I think it might have been adapted from the last one, but from what I understand, it's not very good. They didn't get Ang Lee back. They got a completely different guy. I wouldn't recommend you check out that one. If you do like this movie, maybe check out Hero. It's from I believe 2002. It's another Wuxia movie that was strangely popular in America. It's pretty much the only other one I can think of. I don't remember thinking it's as good as this movie, although it does have like some crazy cinematography. You guys will when you watch it, you'll be like, wow, the colors in this is crazy. Those are really the only two Wuxia movies I'm super familiar with, but I'd also recommend Ran, Kagemusha. These are some Japanese movies that kind of have a similar vibe. And anime. A lot of anime. Naruto, Dragon Ball. You'd be surprised how much overlap there is. Dragon Ball almost kind of feels like a parody of this, at least early Dragon Ball. And movies this remind you of?
Nothing specific, no.
Not in terms of
Okay.
like standard kung fu movies. I guess maybe like Kung Pao Enter the Fist, but not really. I think that's like the only other kung fu-esque movie I've seen, period. I wouldn't even count that one though.
Yeah, so I guess that's our endorsement. If you're not already super familiar with Chinese movies, this is gonna feel like nothing you've ever seen before, except Pirates of the Caribbean and Star Wars. But it's still gonna feel different from that. You're gonna be in for something you've never seen before. I think it's safe to say we all recommend it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thumbs up across the boards. Okay. How about next week?
Lugia.
All right, you're gonna fucking hate me for this. So I did not know how to follow this up, so I kind of didn't even try. I didn't even really know what I wanted to do for next week, but then I had a dream. This film came to
Dream.
me in a dream,
Okay.
and we are kind of going back to a
wait.
lead actor.
I think it'd be really funny is if you said, and then I had a dream, and then you announced the movie was Selma.
No.
I know that's not what the movie is, but the joke for the audience that doesn't understand is Selma is about the Martin Luther is the movie about the Martin Luther King's March on Selma, and the film ends with the "I have a dream" speech. So that's the joke. He had a dream.
That he
and
did. Lugia also
Okay.
had a dream. Please tell us more
Yes.
about this dream.
So we are gonna kind of go back to a lead actor that we recently talked about.
I didn't even know
But it is
Justin
going
still
to
made
be,
movies.
but it is going to be a different director, different production company. So brace yourselves for Adam
Okay.
Sandler's Jack and Jill.
Ah.
I have no idea why this came to me in a dream. It just did, and I just had to stick with it.
This is gonna be a weird question, but didn't we already talk about this?
No, we didn't.
No. We talked about Chuck and Larry. We talked about Click.
Oh God, it was Chuck and I was confused. I was like, I know we did an Adam Sandler movie with blank and blank in the title. Okay.
Chuck
Jack
and
and Jill.
Larry. Jack and
I've already seen this movie. Okay, are we gonna see this?
I saw this
together,
movie
I guess?
once a long time ago.
I saw this a couple of years ago.
Maybe I
Do we
should
wanna-
recommend a bad movie to keep it a bad movie trilogy. I don't know.
Nah. So do we want to watch this together?
Yes.
Okay.
Dear God, yes.
I've seen this already before. I don't want to see it by myself again. Good Lord.
You have an outro?
Well, what's my name? I don't know. I don't know. You guys know any lines from Kung Fu Panda?
Skadoosh.
Sure. I know that. 1, 2, 3. We all say skadoosh. Okay. Well, that was our episode. 1, 2, 3.
Skadoosh.